Thank you for listening to this episode of Bloodhound Pix. As always, I am one of your hosts, Craig,
And I'm Kyle.
and it is just the two of us this episode as we are talking, or at least this little segment, as we are talking about the new release, Willy's Wonderland, starring Nicolas Cage, about the what is it?
Haunted.
Mute,
Yeah.
not necessarily mute, just the
Oh.
non-speaking janitor or man that is forced to do janitorial work inside of a Chuck E. Cheese like building that is haunted by animatronic
Puppets.
killer. Yeah, I know I'm trying to not give away too much, but yeah, it's basically a Nicolas Cage movie in terms of that's the big market. And like all of the horror movies he's done lately, I was like, let's make something really weird for Nicolas Cage to do, which I'm always for. So,
So am I.
Yeah.
Which is why we watched.
Hey, so what? Yeah. What were your thoughts, Kyle?
So I enjoyed it for the most part. We'll get into what we thought were like maybe problems or whatever. It really, so it's obviously, we don't really need to kind of summarize the plot, and it's obviously very similar to Five Nights at Freddy's, that horror video game. That's kind of the same thing where you're like watching a haunted Chuck E. Cheese type place. And it also has like a little bit of Child's Play going on when we get into the backstory.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really good for one of these low budget films in terms of there was stuff happening, and we'll get into later where it does feel like they like stretched, but I did like that, like the whole setup happens, Nicolas Cage like breaks down, has a flat tire, ends up in this town, and is working off this debt by cleaning up this place, and just goes along with it, and doesn't have any lines through the whole movie, which I loved. I was like, I just kept waiting for him to say something, and then I was just hoping he'd never say anything. But I like that, like, he starts cleaning that place up, and he's drinking his weird, like, fake brand soda, and he has that fight with the ostrich animatronic thing before anyone gets there, before those kids get there, they're going to burn it down. But it felt like more like an old movie in that way, where it's like stuff was actually happening. There was actually, like, more stuff going on with the character before he even meets up with these other characters. He's got kind of things going on, and they kind of knew what it was, and they knew that it was just silly action horror comedy. They weren't like trying to make it too dramatic. Some of those kids were pretty stupid, but I think they knew that they were.
Yeah.
And what's her name?
I'd agree. Yeah.
I was just gonna say the sheriff, Beth. I think her name is Beth Grant.
Beth Grant.
Yeah, who's in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good role for her.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed it too. I think I mean I would agree with what you were saying, Kyle. I think what really sells it is, and again, when we kind of start getting into it, and I guess as I'm talking, we will a little bit, is this idea that while he doesn't speak throughout the whole thing, you know that there's dog tags in his car, so obviously he has some sort of military background. That's all we're pretty much given on him. He becomes obsessed with cleaning it. So even as he knows to take breaks, and so
because the owner guy
he'll be
told him to take breaks.
Yeah, so he'll be cleaning. His watch will beep. He'll take a break, drink a can of soda, and then he works on cleaning up to eventually playing a pinball machine in this break room. And then when the it beeps back on, he goes back. He fights these animators, kills them, cleans that up, and then goes back on break. And it's funny and it's great seeing him do that. But then there is that element where that's when the repetition starts. I mean, that's really eventually all we start seeing with him is like him, I guess, clean, fight, break, pinball, and do some more cleaning, more fighting, more cleaning break, and that's what it is. And then every once in a while they'll throw in like the main girl, or they'll throw in the sheriff or whoever, who basically do an exposition dump of like what's happening periodically throughout. But yeah, that's kind of the breakdown without giving too much away. There's 8 animatronic, I think, figures, so you know,
Something
you
like
can
that.
guess it happens, I think, that rotation about 6 times. I don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of keeps repeating, but it does.
Yeah.
For me, like the best parts were just that they committed to that. Like when the kids
Yeah.
finally get, well, when the kids like first try to warn him and stuff, like he just ignores them, and then there's that beat where like the main girl and him are with one of the animatronic things is coming back to life, but his watch goes off for his break.
Yeah.
So he just like hands her a knife and goes and plays pinball and dances and shit, which is amazing. And I'll add like the tow truck driver who picks him up at the beginning, and then the guy who owns the place, Tex McAdoo. They're pretty hilarious, and
Yeah.
and they're like, no, it's supposed to be funny, so it just makes it better. And I loved also too that like I love that part of the climax, part of the final fight is he incorporated the leftover sodas he puts in a sack to use as a weapon, and then he leaves with the sack. And then when and then when the girl gets in his car, which is like, okay, I guess that's how we're ending this.
Yeah.
And they're driving down the road, and it's finally over. He opens that soda and he's about to drink it, and then he offers it to her, and that's like his arc, which was amazing. Was like his arc is just to share a soda with someone.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is great in that sense. And I mean, if you watch the trailer, you can find the line, but I think one of the hilarious parts is that, you find out pretty early on, and you can guess early on, that the town is all involved to kind of appease these monsters and not have the monsters attack town folk. They bring in like, passerby and stuff like that. But so the sheriff comes in, Beth Grant, and basically puts him in handcuffs, or they're like zip ties, and he's there. She's pulling the girl out, and then the girl says the line from the trailer of, "No, you're not getting it. He's not locked in there with them. They're locked in here with him," or something.
The Rorschach
And
line.
that's basically it. Yeah. But yeah, it's all worth it for that.
Yeah. Well, and I like the backstory too, even though obviously what you just said is like a cliche or kind of a trope.
Yeah.
But it's a cool, like I didn't necessarily expect that for this story or whatever. I don't know. I thought it was like cool. Yeah. I mean, it does. Yeah. Ultimately, if you really looked at it though, of course, what you were pointing out, like on rewatches, I don't know how it would go with like, there are a lot of montages of cleaning that after a while you're like, okay.
Yeah. Well, that's what was trying to decide after watching it. It's definitely one that even in how it was made, I think for people, watch with, obviously there's a pandemic, but watch with friends or family and like eat junk food or drink or whatever it may be. Like that's to have fun with it. But again, I know I'll watch it again, but I don't know if it'll be like one of those where I'll watch a lot. Or, I mean, I could see it being like one of those you throw on as background noise because it's just so kind of, there's not much to it. But yeah, also I thought, I don't know, it's one of those as well where like if they just had an ounce more of budget, it would have like really knocked it out of the park, in my opinion. I mean, they already do and work really well with what they had, but I kind of just wish there was just that like little smidge more.
Yeah, I agree. You could tell they were like making the most of what they had, but they could have done a little bit more. But it was like, I do think it was a clever idea just from a movie making standpoint of like, you have those animatronic things, which later, we can tell it's just like a guy in a suit, but it totally works.
Yeah.
But it saves it saves them having like some complicated, expensive thing.
Yeah,
and they work
exactly.
as like being kind of creepy or whatever, creepy enough in a horror comedy.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, completely on it. So it gets my recommendation.
Yeah, mine too.
So, do you have any last words on Willy's Wonderland before we sign off, Kyle?
We love you, Nicolas Cage. If you ever want to do an interview, Craig is available at any time, day or night, any time zone.
Day, night, evening, the weekends, whatever, holidays.
Weddings, birthdays, whatever.
Yeah. So thank you for listening again, and have a great night.
Adios.
Bloodhound Pix podcast is part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcast Network. Produced by Josh Lee, Craig Draheim, and Kyle Hintz. Music by Raymond Seed. Editing by Kyle Hintz.